Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Corporate Performance and Budget Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor Will Adams and I'm Chair of the committee. We have committee members in the Civic Centre along with officer support. The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and will be available on the Council's website. Some housekeeping for those in the Civic Centre. There are no fire drills planned, and if the alarm does go off, please leave by the emergency exits at the back of the room and congregate on the car park. Can I also ask to please turn your mobile phones off and switch your microphones off when not speaking. For those joining us via Microsoft Teams, please remain muted and indicate the appropriate time when you would like to speak, and I will bring you in. We will now move on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Chair, we've got apologies from Councillor Will King, who is being substituted by Councillor Karen Walton. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. And just on Councillor King, we do wish him and his partner well, who have welcomed their firstborn into the world. So on behalf of all the committee, we send our best wishes. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded to declare any interest that they may have. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, we might talk about it later on, but I just been appointed a member of the Leyland Town Deal Board. So I'm just going to put that down. It's a non-prejudicial interest.
Thank you. That's noted. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting held on Monday, 11th of March 2024. Can we move these? Seconded. All in favour? Wonderful, thank you. Moving on to item 4, the recommendations tracker. Members are asked to review the responses received to previous recommendations and agree for those accepted and completed to be removed. Wonderful. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5, which is the assets and asset management update. We have Councillor Matthew Tomlinson, Cabinet Member for Finance, Assets and Commercialisation, who will present the report, supported by Gail Wootton, Director of Planning and Property. And I'm aware that this is your first meeting in front of the Scrutiny Committee tonight, Gail, so a warm welcome from all of us. We look forward to working with you, moving it forward. So I'd like to welcome you both and invite you to say a few words before we ask our questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Gail is far more nervous than she looks, so I do hope you'll be gentle with her. Members will be aware that management of our assets has been an issue we've been grappling with for a number of years, really. And when we first formed the administration here, it was one of our ambitions to really get a grip with this, delayed by COVID and a couple of personnel changes. But I think this report highlights the fact that we are now beginning to grasp the issue. We've purchased the necessary software and management systems that we need. They are now in place and busily being occupied and populated. We have had, thankfully, some stability within staff around this team, and I believe we're making really good progress. We do have a lot of assets, and it's really important for a whole range of reasons that we know what we've got, what sort of condition it's in. Simple things like, and it's an example I've used in the past, that if we have a commercial unit somewhere, there should be somewhere where we can go and basically press half a dozen buttons and find out everything we need to know about that unit. So when's the lease due? When was the last rent review? When was the Legionnaires test done? Is it our responsibility to do the gas and fire safety, or is it the occupants? When was that all done? And all that information has been available in the past. It's just that it's been scattered around the office in different drawers or on different computer systems. What we're trying to do now is getting it all in one place, so it's easily accessible, easily manageable, and we can get the best out of our assets because we actually know these things. It also, and it's mentioned in the report, allows us to be more proactive in how we manage our buildings rather than reactive. So it's fair to say that at the moment we are a little bit still reactive. So we find out that something's wrong with one of our buildings and we go out and we put it right. We do put it right. But it's also fair to say that we haven't done a condition survey before so that we saw these problems coming. And that's where we want to get to. And that's what this is all about. So with that, all that being said, I'm happy to try and field any questions. The report's there for your feedback and to make the appropriate recommendations. If I can't answer your questions, I'll be relying on Gail, but I'm sure we'll manage to do our best to answer any questions and help you inform your recommendations. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And we have got quite a sizable agenda tonight, so I will be keeping tabs on times to try and make sure that we fit everything in. So I'll start then, please. On page 20, paragraph 9A, the property asset register is a major step forward. Please, could you confirm that all of the council's property assets are on the register? And if not, do we have a percentage?
Okay, I'm thankful that that's an easy answer. The answer is yes, they all are.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening. Just a question around the condition surveys. We talked about we got on page 21, paragraph 11, that the condition surveys were undertaken in 2021 and we're now in 2024, so it's obviously 3 years later. Is it possible our properties could have deteriorated further? And what extent is the extent of the repairs that we've had to make, and how many properties are in need of urgent repair, and what types of repair have we need to undertake, and how much budgetary provision has been made for these repairs?
I mean, there's several really good questions in there, which are perfect examples of perhaps questions that could be put before, so we could bring that information, because I think with the best will in the world, until that system is available that we can just type those things in, I can't give, I mean, we can give you answers, but tonight we can't give you answers to those questions. I think the first question was about the time lapse between condition surveys and us doing that proactive work. And I agree that that's probably not good enough. And that's the sort of thing we need to address. But in terms of what repairs are needed, how many of our units need work doing, I don't have that information. But I'm sure we can, some of that information may well be available.
Only to say, rather than pass the information on to Councillor Thomason, is that what we're moving to is a 52-week plan of the repairs and conditions. So some of the elements within a building need to be checked more frequently than others, but we are moving to a 52-week plan so that we know exactly when our assets need to be checked for various different elements. That can all be built into the Civica property management system. So then email alerts get driven into the right inboxes so that people actually go out and do those checks as well. So it is something that we're definitely moving ahead with.
Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, hopefully this is a bit more of a simpler one. On page 21, paragraph 13, the report mentions addressing issues as they occur rather than pre-planned schedules. So do we still do pre-planned maintenance to keep on top of our properties? How do we currently maintain the grounds of some of our properties? They often need hedge trimming or leaf clearance in autumn. Is this work programmed in? And do you want to drink that first?
So we'll do a mixture of planned and unplanned or immediate repairs that are required as things come up. So the 52-week plan, as I was saying, will identify when condition surveys are needed, and that might trigger the need to do some repairs, some maintenance. But there will always be things that come up that maybe can't be planned for. Your question was around hedgerows and kind of the external of the units, depending on whether that's in our control or whether that's something that actually some of the tenants might control. That work will be, our street scene colleagues will be maintaining those kind of externalities to any building in terms of the kind of greenery. That answers the question.
Well, that was the question, but is it actually done? Or do we just react as and when somebody phones up and says this is a mess?
Our street scene teams have a plan in terms of the work that they do in relation to maintaining the street scene of areas that are on their planned maintenance schedule.
Councillor Walton.
Good evening. Thank you for coming to our committee meeting tonight. My question is, please could you talk us through what the SFG 20 compliance is on page 22, paragraph 18? And the report mentions that we are substantially compliant. And when will we be fully compliant, and what is needed to get us there to be fully compliant?
Okay, so this is about how we service and look after our buildings. And I think we've had some concerns before around audit and whether we knew that these works were taking place. I think this has been put in to reassure the committee that these works are, these checks are being done and that we are compliant, so we don't have any buildings where we have concerns about health and safety or anything like that. And I think that now audit are saying we can demonstrate that. I think the questions that have been raised before have been about whether we can demonstrate. So, for instance, there was a couple, 3 or 4 years ago now, there was queries even about the use of this building because audit had raised something. And it comes back to good management, actually, because members were really concerned that audit had said we couldn't show that this building was health and safety compliant, but we could eventually when we went out and did the work, because the work had been done. It just hadn't been marked off in a checklist to show that it had been done. And I think this section here is trying to reassure members that we are compliant now, which is a big step forward from where we were.
So can I just come back? So what does SFG 20 actually mean? Because we don't know. It's an acronym, isn't it?
So the second line says basically it's a compendium of the maintenance specifications for various different pieces of kit that you might have within a building. So forgive me, FSG, the acronym I don't know. G, I'm guessing guidelines. But it's, so if you've got a lift, for example, it's the maintenance specifications for the particular items that you might have within buildings.
Councillor Pillinger.
Just for future reference, I mean, and for general reference within council reports, it would be helpful to have an explanation of acronyms when we are getting reports, even if they're at the end of the report. We can look them up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pillinger. Good suggestion, I would say. Coming back to you then, please, for your question. Thank you.
I think this is probably the simplest one so far. Mention on paragraph 20 on the same page of a centralised spreadsheet. Why do we need that as well as the asset management system?
Yeah, so I think this is will be a part of it, but at the moment it's still standalone. But obviously all these responsibilities will be moved into the management system. But it's just having, and it comes back to the Councillor Walton's questions and the concerns that were raised in the past, that the work was being done around safety checks, but it was not always clear whose job it was, when it should be done. Can we demonstrate it has been done to members, and that this spreadsheet is just a simple way of making sure that's done, but then will become a part of the management system in the future.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Good evening, Councillor Thomas and Gail. Welcome to Scrutiny. Can I just ask you about paragraph 23, please? Sorry, paragraph 22 on page 23. And it's pleasing to see an increase in the occupancy of our investment properties. So yeah, well done on that. But can I just ask you about what rental arrears are looking like currently? And is there any trend information on this? And how do we manage the risk moving forward?
I don't have that information, but I'm happy to provide it to the committee. It is really pleasing. We do have a large portfolio, but I think it's probably reflective of how attractive a place South Ribble is to do business, both from our geographical situation, but the fact that we've always done our best to market these things, and 95% is just an amazing figure, really, and to be welcomed. But I'll get you that information.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlinson. Councillor Pillinger.
This is paragraph 23 about the rent reviews. Just wondering how long it will take before the outstanding rent reviews will be completed, or are they a bit like the old Forth Road Bridge that as soon as you finish painting one end, you started on the next one? And are there resource issues here in terms of getting them done? And how much income might we be losing by not having them up to date?
So I would say in the past it has been a resource issue, and it's one of the things that I alluded to, the situation we were in before we started this work, that we got all these properties, they were all being rented out, but it was all, no one was really had a grip on it. Because we have now, or we are now starting to get a grip, you can see actually that we have started doing these reviews, and actually that's driving up income. Because we now know, your rent's review's due and it's not been done for a while, we can move those rents onto a more up-to-date commercial footing. I'm confident now we do have the resourcing to get this done, and probably over the next 12 months or so, we ought to be in a position where that figure of 109 is much, much lower, and the actual rent increase hopefully will be higher.
Is it practically that there will always be some?
I think it is that there'll always be some, just because that's life and human nature. But with the new system, we will always know when a rent review is due. Now, we might then go into a rent review that takes longer than we'd like, because there's always a negotiation around these things. You talk to the tenant, they come back to you and say, "Oh, you're asking for too much," and we say, "Well, this is," So there will always be some that are in situ, and it may always be the case that there'll be a couple that are a bit late and outstanding. But what we've got to do is drive that figure down as low as we can.
Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, on page 24, paragraph 29, is there any scope for our tenants to access our energy contracts to get greater economy of scale and also encourage green energy and to help achieve our net carbon zero ambitions?
So just to confirm that the inspired energy contract is 100% renewable. So for the assets that are on there or moving on there, some of this will be dependent on when their existing arrangements are coming to an end. If they're a tenant, for example, we need to, be aware of that so that we can move them onto a new energy contract. But that they are all 100% renewable. And in terms of whether our tenants can access that, that's a good point. Anna can take that away and find that out.
Okay, thank you. That brings questions from the committee to an end. Are there questions from members not on committee? Nope. I don't think we've got any members of the public here or online, I don't think, by the looks of things. Can we please therefore formulate recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes from tonight's meeting that the committee might like to recommend. The committee thanks the Cabinet Member and Director for attending and answering questions. The committee commends the progress made on the corporate property management system and a full asset register now being in place. The committee asks for further information on the repairs needed from the condition surveys and the budgetary implications of this. The committee requests that all future reports are written in plain English. The committee welcomes the high occupancy rates of the council's investment property portfolio and asks for further information on rent receipts and arrears. And the committee explores the possibility of extending our energy contract to our tenants. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. And we all agree with those recommendations on the committee? Thank you very much. Moving swiftly on then to agenda item 6, which is the Q4 performance monitoring report. we have Councillor Jackie Alty, the new leader of the council, who will jointly present. Apologies. Okay, so we've got Councillor Jackie Alty, the new leader of the council, who will present this report, along with, supported by Caroline Wolfenden, the Director of Change and Delivery, and Holly Wormsley, the Head of Policy, People and Partnerships. Can I welcome you all to the committee? I'd also like to congratulate Councillor Alty on being appointed leader of the council. I know that we haven't got a meeting in the diary yet, but we will do shortly in terms of discuss continuing to strengthen the relationship that we have in terms of cabinet scrutiny and the administration for this council. So I'd welcome you all to say a few words by way of introduction, and then we'll move on to our questions. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me here tonight to answer questions. I hope I perform well as I'm doing the Q4 performance. It'll be an interesting outcome. It's a real privilege to play a role in the governance of the council, and no question is too difficult. If I can't answer it, we can find. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the questions then. So the first one is from me on page 29, paragraph 15. Please could you talk us through the impact of the Family Wellbeing Centre and what success looks like? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the Family Wellbeing Centre, what an amazing, not just building, structure, staff, the enthusiasm from local community, the impact it's having on families local and families wider than Gloucester Hall in the South Ribble area. There are repeated requests, sometimes draining resources so that they have to put requests out for extra provisions. The need is demonstrable. You only have to go down and visit the place, watching it work day in, day out, and look at the responsive nature that meet residents when they approach looking for help. So for me, what does the success look like? Sadly, at the moment, the demands are increasing due to wider context. But as each family goes away with something that they need, then we've achieved a success, step by step. We've got so much more to do, but we're on the road. We're on the road to actually making lives better, improving opportunities and supporting people who are in need. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's very difficult to quantify in terms of success, and we appreciate that. I think what might be useful moving forward, if we could, is to put some figures in there in terms of exactly how many people they've supported or how many people are visiting the centre. I think that might help us in terms of having a better overview of what that performance might look like. But conscious we'll never really truly be able to have the human impact, which is what it's all about. Councillor Pillinger, come to you next.
Good evening. We want to congratulate the Active Health team on their National Bikeability Award. It's good that we've got, I remember doing cycling proficiency when I was a lot younger than I am now, and I'm glad to see it, at least in theory, though I note I've seen recently children driving around on pavements at speed on their bikes in the borough, but I don't think we'll ever stop that. And unlit as well. But with regards to holiday activities and food programme, what are future plans to develop this further and secure financial sustainability?
I think the plans for supporting communities who find themselves in a place of need to provide structure and activities and food over the holidays will continue for some time. And I think the changes will always be rolling on with every opportunity that we're provided with. So you mentioned the bikeability. and we talk about arts and crafts, and we talk about a lot of different means of entertaining children and keeping them active and healthy. I don't think that the underlying foundations will ever change. We're basically meeting needs, looking at a lot of different areas, but it's our community champions that actually provide the variability of what we can offer. They see needs in communities, they identify opportunities, they tell us what they need, and we are responsive in trying to meet those needs. So as they arise, we'll be presented with opportunities, and it will drive forward from a community champion origin, really. We can think that we've got all the ideas and all the answers, but actually it's so much better when it's produced from grassroots.
Thank you. Councillor Walton.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight to speak to us. My question is on page 29 concerning paragraph 17, the cost of living action plan. Reference is made to the delivery of the South Ribble Together Roadshow. So, as you mentioned, how do you assess the value for money of the roadshow? And are we going to repeat the roadshows to get the cost of living support messages out? And I know we've reached about 150 residents from the roadshows, but are we considering other outreach activities? We've discussed this many times at many committee meetings that I've been part of. And are there any plans to extend the offer?
I can tell you that, yes, we are going to do it again. Yes, there's already appointments in place. There's already bookings. So you will all be presented with details of those in the near future. We've achieved 150 residents who've been contacted opportunistically, people who would have been challenged from an accessibility point of view, coming to a more organised centre like the Civic or community centres even. And sometimes people have come just for a look, and then been presented with an opportunity to find out information and also to educate them as to what is available. So people have approached and not known, and we've been able to point them in the right direction. Social prescribers on board as well. Unify Credit Union and CAB. All those things, although we're providing them on a roadshow bus, are available for all councillors to hold community conversations with support from different agencies, all within their own community. We've recently invested in gazebos, which doesn't sound that great on its own. However, we would take them, set them up, and provide residents with an opportunity, time and date within their local area to come and access the information that we have, that we can offer them, and the support services and the partner agencies that we work with. Information about that. It can be disseminated over social media. It can be provided in leaflets. It can be put up in GP surgery. But very often, once you take a place and you populate it, people will come and have a chat with you. Just sat chatting basically in community is something that councillors will be very good at. And I think it's an opportunity that we don't take enough of, but we will be promoting that in the future along with the roadshow.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Just on that same paragraph, at the end of that paragraph, there's a mention of £160,000 in grants being awarded to community organisations. I'm not expecting it tonight, but is there any way you could send maybe a two-sided A4 just to give us a summary of the benefits that have been achieved as a result of that? And whilst I'm speaking, can I welcome you and congratulations on your appointment as leader?
Yeah, I'm happy to source that information for you. I'm not sure that we can always gather anything other than numbers, but we'll try and qualify it as well so that you get a personal lived experience. Thanks.
Councillor Howarth.
Thank you. Yeah, page 29, paragraph 18, and you might not be surprised I'm asking this. What are the early indications of the financial position with regards to this year's Music in the Park? And what has the feedback been from residents? And how far are we in making Music in the Park financially self-sufficient?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, Music in the Park, we've had our third event, and each year it is creating less of a deficit because it is an investment in community. It's an investment in a wider community as well. However, there is a limit, and we are currently looking at rescoping and how best to take it forward. We think it's a valuable event. We think it's brought something special to the community. And I know I've been to each one, and the last one was the one I stayed for the entire event. It was very long. And I think we have lots of local talent as well. So I think looking at it in long term, we need to reshape it. We need to keep it because it is a great asset. But there is much more that we can do. Sorry, do you want me to add anything?
Yeah, just to obviously follow on from what Councillor Alty was saying, we have obviously managed to reduce the deficit this year. So, I mean, we have still made a loss, but it is less than it has been in previous years. But yes, we're at the stage now of thinking about what the event looks like in future years, and also thinking about other events obviously that are hosted in the town, and how we sort of like pull those like together. There will be an options paper that will be presented to the leader in terms of how we move forward for next year. So we are looking to continue to run Music in the Park next year, but we are looking at a different model of delivery potentially, but obviously that will be something that Councillor Alty will consider as part of the options paper that we put forward.
I could just come back. I'm pleased to hear that you are looking at a remodel, because I think those were the points that we made in council when we actually debated it last time round. Have you got a figure as to what the loss is?
We're looking, I think, around about a 95 loss this year, but that is significantly less than what it was last year. As I said, in terms of like potential models of delivery moving forward, I mean, obviously we could continue to run it as a council. We could potentially look for a delivery partner, or we could potentially look at actually asking a partner to take it on. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about, and would be looking at obviously the cost benefits like of those different options.
Okay, thank you. Can I take you to page 33, paragraph 28? Please could you talk us through the Fit for the Future programme, what it hopes to achieve and what will the impact be, and how will members be involved?
So the transformation programme was 21 to 24. Obviously, it's due for a refresh. It was based around financial development and enhancement of services at the same time. Moving forward, there is going to be a more, forgive me if I use the wrong words, there's going to be more of a collaborative approach with staff to ensure that the services that we deliver are responsive and appropriate, and that the staff are content in their ability to deliver at capacity. So there is a great many areas, obviously, as the council sits within a partnership arrangement with our local communities. So in that, we want to contribute to a wider discussion, and I think that's the key. So for me, all the work that we do within council, as councillors individually, as committee officers, as members, ought to be done in collaboration and with a cooperative mindset. So I think that is now being modelled within the transformation refresh. So yeah, that's where I see it. It's wider than just a framework that we then deliver. It's more of a dynamic changing situation.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously we will be looking to refresh the corporate strategy this year, later on this year, in November. So in terms of the transformation strategy refresh, we want to allow that to align with what we do around the corporate strategy, because the whole point of the transformation strategy is about being a fit for the future council. So how do we, potentially look at making efficiency savings? How do we look at like investing in the things that we do so that we can, deliver better services like for our customers? So if we bring the two together and take more of a holistic approach to our corporate strategy process, whereby we're looking at what we can deliver for our residents, but at the same time, we're looking at how we, shape ourselves as a council so that we can actually deliver on those corporate strategy priorities. So we're trying to take a more sort of like wider view really of the transformation strategy and the corporate strategy and bring them together as part of one process, which is why there's been a bit of a delay in obviously developing the transformation strategy and refreshing it, because we want to try and take a bit of a broader view and make sure that it's aligned with other work that we're carrying out around those priorities.
Okay, thank you. How are members being involved in this process?
So members are involved in the corporate strategy process. So we'll be having a portfolio exchange, and obviously any priorities that are put forward will come through to scrutiny and cabinet to be involved in like those discussions. So that was. Previously, the process has been quite sort of like officer like led, and there's been discussions like internally, but we want to try and broaden that out, which is why we're looking to incorporate the refresh as part of the corporate strategy process, so we can get more engagement with relevant stakeholders.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Just moving on to page 33, paragraph 30, where we talk about different metrics and customer service. I think I ask this every single meeting or questions related to it. There's been a slight drop in the percentage of calls answered. It's still within target, but it was gone from 87.9% down to 82.8, and obviously that's quite a bit of a drop. Is there a reason for this drop in the percentages of calls answered, and what has been done to improve this in the future to improve performance?
I think this indicator is always a bit of a strange one, because obviously the volume of calls like fluctuates, but I think on the whole, we are a responsive council in terms of answering the calls, but you will see a fluctuation in terms of the figures, just because it does vary depending on terms of the amount of calls that we're receiving into the council, and that can vary depending across the year in terms of what's happening out in communities, or if newsletters have gone out and things like that. So it depends in terms of the call levels that we're getting.
I just say that, as you said, metrics are always interesting and they do fluctuate, and you can read in or read out of them a lot of different things. In terms of, we measure quantity, but the qualitative measure of any phone call is whether that person needs to call back, or how long we spent with them in the first place. Have we redirected them to the right people if they need it? So it's like a lot of snapshots that we do. It's a period in time for an indicator of what is of concern at that time. So it may be that there is a national event or a local event that has stimulated fear, anxiety, or a drive for further information. So I don't have the specific what has driven the change in these, but from a personal point of view, whenever I'm looking at numbers and statistics, I try to find the context around it, and which is what you've done tonight, and I appreciate that, because it will make me look a bit closer at that point next time. Thank you.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Can I also look at this? So there's also been a drop in the percentage of calls answered within the target from, I think it's almost 88% down to 82.8%. Could you explain what the reason is for the drop and what's being done to improve this in the future as we're now close to the target? And just going on from that as well, in terms of customer satisfaction, that's dropped from just over 72% to 70.4%. Danger of missing the target, and obviously we don't wish to do that. So again, what actions are you taking to make sure we stay within the target, please?
Again, I will go back to the context of people telephoning, trying to get through. Yeah, on any one period, depending on what the national mood is or the local mood is, we will have greater or fewer calls. Some of them may be very complex and require lengthy conversations, some may not. So this is one of those targets that can fluctuate without it necessarily meaning there's any diminishing in quality of service. But if somebody is anxious and waiting for a phone call to be answered, then I suggest that probably dissatisfaction with that wait is realistic, and it's not to be encouraged. Obviously, we want to get through things as much as possible, but the reality is if we want to deliver a quality service, then sometimes time spent dealing with one call may impinge on another. And yes, perhaps we need to look at capacity, but I do think fluctuating trends in the wider news model that is introduced by social media, newspapers, or actually on the BBC News or any other news services can raise the numbers in terms of we want a response, we want to know what this means to us now, and that might drive our calls to be longer and the wait to be a little bit longer as well. But we will keep looking at it.
Councillor Pullinger.
Can I move you on to page 34, paragraph 29, and we're on to the town deal. Whilst you gather your thoughts and change the subject that we're dealing with, it's some time now since the grants were granted, as it were. The project has begun to move on. We've got a demolition of a factory and some extra costs that have come out of things that have been revealed. Do we have final costings for the project? And is there a risk about the financial model of it? Clearly, the grant isn't going up over time, even though the costs are.
I'm going to hand you over to Gail for that one. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, in terms of the report that's presented before you, it's important to remember it's a Q4 report, as I'm sure you'll be aware, so things have moved on. There are various different assets, facets of this project, as you know, the demolition of Idden's factory. We've also got the Quinn Street housing moving forward, and also the market relocation as well. So there are many elements of that. In terms of the overall question for costings, we're moving to a position where, just because of the different elements of the project, some of them are moving faster than others. So some of them we've got the absolute costings, and then others they're coming through as we move through design and build contracts, for example. So, but things are progressing very well with the project. I think there's overall a kind of slight delay of about a month in total, but definitely the focus of the team over the past few months has been really on the market, the sort of temporary relocation of the market traders, which is taken a fair amount of time, as you can imagine. It's been, collaborative with those market traders, but we're in a good position now to be able to move forward with that.
Sorry, Gail. When do we expect to have the final costings? And are we assured in terms of we're managing the risk associated, obviously, with inflation and costs rising?
if I can answer that one as well. So we have a capital programme board that meets every month that we look through the costings. So we're expecting in the next couple of months to have the costings back from the various different elements of the scheme that board will look through. And then if there are any necessary changes to agreed budgets, that would obviously come through to council meetings, for example. I don't anticipate at the moment that there would need to be that, but over the coming months we'll have that detail of the costs.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Staying with the town deal and various issues around it, is there a wider strategy as part of the project to consider the increasing number of vacant properties in the town centre? There's a number of businesses that have left, and also I think there's another Leyland business has announced the closing, be another vacant one coming up very shortly. But is there a strategy to consider the amount of vacant properties?
There are discussions. We are looking at a lot of different options. I think it's one of those moving feasts. So as one opportunity comes up and another one shuts down, we just keep working through it. So I can't give you a specific, but I will come back to you with it.
Just sort of a follow-up, and it probably relates to the previous question as well. Is there an update on the engagement with the market traders and development of a communications plan around the town deal? I just not now the election's over. We need to be communicating with the residents in that particular area, what's going on, where they're up to, what things are going to look like. And I noticed it's been fairly sound, and as a ward council, it's something I've been asking for quite a while. So are we any further on actually getting that developed?
I apologise for not turning my microphone off earlier. Yes, there is movement on the market traders, but I'm not at liberty to divulge all of that just yet. It will come out soon. And with regards to communication strategy, yes, we're on with that as well. And you will be hearing an update on that soon as well.
Okay, thank you. Can I take you to page 36? And paragraph 39, as part of increasing the percentage of the 16-17-year-olds not in education, employment or training, and the consistent challenges in relation to employment for other residents, have we considered signing up to a Fair Work Charter to bring partners together and making the most of our anchor employees in the borough?
I think we are always working towards working closer with the institutions and businesses within our area that support this. And we are involved in, particularly with trying to identify the skills gaps, which we'll continue to work on. I think the very great difficulty in this is that we're kind of meeting people as they fall in the water, as opposed to going further back and looking at the reasons why people get to 16 and 17 where it's difficult. So early interventions at an early age, or investment at an early age, where with young children, building up their social skills, building up their developmental skills, and working that through in a holistic way that includes families, social infrastructures, making sure that people have support at the point of need when it's first identified, rather than waiting until further. We will continue to work towards meeting the needs of individuals. We'll continue to work with businesses and further education and high schools. But I think we're looking at a massive picture where we have not carried people along and not met their needs as we've gone along. So while I have every aspiration to address all the needs, and we will continue working, particularly with local community groups that support young people. It is a long job, and yes, there will be fluctuations, and part of this may have arisen through fractured relationships during COVID, or actually fractured relationships within families due to COVID or other wider social ills. But it is a priority. We will keep looking at it, and every opportunity we can, we will seek to address it. And yeah, a fair charter, it's part of our core that we want to drive things forward.
Sorry, yeah, we are actually in the process of developing one as part of our commitment to the community wealth building agenda. So that is something that has been identified as a piece of work to take forward.
Excellent. Okay. Councillor Walton.
Thank you. My question concerns page 38, paragraph 41 and page 39, the ambit risk rating on the proposed skate park and refurbishment of Tardy Gate. It says in here that despite uncertainty surrounding procurement of the skate park, a second consultation will take place with the community hub chairs for a decision on proposed skate park location and design. Well, I've asked as ward councillor on many occasions for the results of the first consultation, and I've not received anything. So could you provide an update? And as you've mentioned before about the bus going round, we used to have community forums to gain the views of residents in all the community hubs, and like you said, community conversations. Would that be a way forward to get the views of the residents where any proposed skate park might be relocated in the future?
I'm surprised you haven't got the results of the first consultation. However, we can make sure that you get those. With regards to community hubs, there's absolutely no reason why we can't use them for any consultative purpose, whether it's a community conversation or otherwise. I know that a second consultation has taken place, and I'm waiting for some of that information, but there doesn't at this moment appear to be a definitive outcome. So, but I will keep you informed. Thank you.
Councillor Howarth. Microphone, sorry, Councillor.
On page 38, paragraph 42, connected with climate change and the environment, we have a policy in place of not allowing balloons to be sold, given or released on council land. However, this is not followed up at a number of events such as Leyland Festival. What more can we do to ensure that this policy is followed?
I agree that it's still happening all too often. I think one of the better proactive ways to do that is at the point at which somebody wants to use our land, we have that discussion then, and we ask that they provide alternative means to decorate. It is definitely within our remit to say no, and we just need to enforce it.
I mean, would it help if we actually tried to explain to people why we've got that policy? Because just simply saying you can't release balloons or sell balloons or whatever, there's a very valid reason for it. I think somebody let a balloon off recently and took out a whole area because it's got stuck in the electricity pylons, as well as it being akin to single-use plastic.
I think it's fair. Your comments are absolutely fair. In terms of communications, I know we have published communications on social media. I know that we've included them in some community gatherings that we've had. We've had conversations with people, but could we do better? Yes. And do we need to follow it up? Absolutely. And education is always the best way. So yeah, thank you for your suggestions.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Can I take us to page 41, paragraph 51, which is looking at employee sickness absences. And I understand there's been an increase in sickness absences by almost 60%. Do we know why this is the case and why these absences are on the rise? I mean, in some cases, there might be individual circumstances, but is there any trend that appears to be worrying and that we should be aware of? And what is being done to monitor and support our employees? And then ultimately, what will be done to actually bring these sickness absences down to a lower level?
Thank you. So it's a cumulative figure, so it's year to date. So that's the amount of days lost across the whole year. So the 60% is reflective of the fact that the year has continued. I think it is worth noting that our sickness absences have increased in the last couple of years since we insourced waste. That is reflective of us having more of an operational workforce, but we are doing a lot of work with that service to make sure that they are supported to improve sort of general health and well-being, and also that managers are supported to understand our policies and processes, which are obviously different to the policies and processes that exist within the private sector. Most notably, that we don't have a policy of not paying somebody for the first 3 days of their sickness absence, which artificially reduces how much absence is reported in the private sector. So it is something that we're very mindful of. It is something that we've got action plans in place where services are not meeting the targets that we have got, but that fundamentally we do have a supportive approach towards sickness absence, because in the main people don't want to be absent from work. People are happier when they are in work and well enough to be in work.
Okay, thank you. That's all question. Sorry, Councillor Green.
Sorry, Chairman, could I ask one further question, if I may? So page 42, paragraph 52, we've got the target, which is worse than target. So effectively the collection of council tax rates that continues to be worse than our target. Could you explain what is being done to actually address that moving forward?
At this moment, no, I can't. I'll find out for you. Thank you.
Okay, well then that does bring us to the end of our questions from the committee. Are there any questions from members not on committee? Councillor Tomlinson.
Thanks. Not a question, just reflecting on the earlier conversation about telephone calls. I think we have to remember this is looking back, and this is Q4, which is always when we have the most demand on telephone calls. So there's always more pressure because the council tax bills have gone out. Brown bins need reordering. So it traditionally, it's a quarter where we get more pressure. And so that being the case, it's not unexpected that the actual figures for that quarter are a bit lower than the other three.
Okay, thank you. No other questions from members not on committee? No. We don't have any members of the public here or online. Therefore, can we formulate the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes from the discussion tonight. The committee thanks the leader, director and head of service for attending and answering questions. The committee looks forward to building the strong, positive relationship with the new leader of the council. The committee asks that future reports provide more detailed information on the success and outcomes of the Family Wellbeing Centre. The committee congratulates the council's active health team on their recent National Bikeability Award. The committee asks for a summary of the benefits of the community grant scheme. The committee requests that all members and Scrutiny be involved in the Fit for the Future transformation programme. The committee welcomes the assurance that improving customer service performance will remain a focus. The committee looks forward to further information on the implications of the Leyland Town deal with regards to market traders and the wider community communications plan, which is due to be announced. The committee commends the confirmation that the council is working towards the Fair Work Charter. The committee is grateful for the offer of the results of the consultation on the Tardygate play area, information being made available to councillors. And the committee asks that the council's policy of not allowing balloons to be sold, given or released is promoted more widely and enforced with event organisers. Thank you, Chair.
Are we happy with those recommendations? Okay, we can move them. Thank you. Moving on then to agenda item 7, which is the 23-24 capital programme and balance sheet monitoring report as at 31st of March 2024. We will have Councillor Matthew Tomlinson, Cabinet Member for Finance, Assets and Commercialisation, who will present the report, supported by Louise Matheson, Director of Finance. Again, welcome to you both. I welcome you to say a few words by way of introduction, and then we'll go on to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And if you'll permit me, I think we'll just address both agenda items together rather than doing a separate discussion on them both. I think on the capital programme, there is, it's fair to say, been some slippage. I do want to give the committee the reassurance that all the projects that are in the capital programme we're still absolutely committed to. But if you look through why there's been slippage, there are a series of individual reasons that are explained in the text, and you'll see some of those, for instance, from page 51 onwards. I mean, I'm happy to take any individual questions about those, but they are varied, but each one is given what I think is a defendable reason. But we are committed to each and every one of those projects. It's just about the timing, whether they are done by the 31st of March or not. I think we have said before that we were going to have a conversation around how we programme these, and it's whether, when you're ambitious about a programme, do you put it all in next year in the capital programme, or do you have a robust and realistic conversation about whether you will be able to deliver it all in 1 year, or whether you need to phase it over a period of time that's more realistic. And that's I think a philosophical conversation that we need to have with ourselves. When we come to the revenue budget, I think, obviously the outturn is very pleasing. After coming to you at the end of each quarter, that you'll remember at the end of quarter one, it really was looking quite challenging with things around the homeless agenda, driving up costs. We worked really hard on that. And over the year, some things have gone our way, as with any budget. Some things have gone our way, some things haven't. But at the end of the day, when we come to the final outturn, you'll see that on the revenue budget, we've actually underspent by some £629,000. When you look at what we've achieved over the year, the things that we've got done, I think that's a very pleasing figure. And in fact, all of that figure will go into our general reserve. So we've always had a policy here that our general reserve shouldn't be less than £4 million. It's now over £5 million in the general unallocated reserve. And I think that puts us in a really healthy position when you look at some councils, not just across the country, but in terms of across the county too. Try and avoid speaking about other places where Councillor Green and Councillor Howarth and I meet. But Councillor Vincent raised at a recent cabinet meeting that we were one of the better ones, but his figures were out of date because he had us as a small overspend, and I think that's where we were at the end of quarter three. So now we're at a significant underspend. All that being said, I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you may have. And as usual, I'm grateful to our Section 151 officer, Louise Mattison, who sat next to me to take on some of the more challenging questions, perhaps.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take you straight to page 49, paragraph 12. You already mentioned slippage, but with the slippage and reprofile budgets totaling £7.2 million is quite significant. What are the key themes and trends here, and is there any way of improving our budget and capital allocations for future years?
Yeah, I think I did refer to that actually in my preamble, that I think we do need to look more rigorously at how we put these things into the capital programme, and just being realistic about how long some of these things take. I'm constantly frustrated about how long things take in local government. But at the end of the day, we are spending public money. And so those processes and those decisions tend to be more rigorous than they might be in the private sector. We sometimes have to wait 8-9 weeks because there isn't a cabinet meeting due to take a decision that was made early on in that 9-week period. So I think there's a job of work to be done around this. I mean, some of the things simply out of our control, some of the playground stuff that we would have loved to have finished by now, just the wet weather that we've had over the months simply means it's impossible to get. So all the money's in place, the procurement's been done, the company knows that they're going to do the work, but frankly, it's simply impossible. So some of those things in there will relate to that, simply things out of our control. But there is, as I've said before, and I'll say again, we need to do some work on how we profile some of these bigger jobs to make sure that the delivery, the promise of delivery within the capital report is a bit more realistic.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pillinger.
This relates to one of the items, the sewerage pumping station and septic tanks in that table, which might also relate to Worden Park on page 51. We got rid of one set of loos. We've got a set of loos near the entrance that aren't working and have been built for some months now without them being open. I keep getting questions about what's happening to them. If this is because we need is this a sewage pumping station relating to those loos? Worden Park is not. I just wonder why there seems to be a problem with where those toilets are meant to feed into, and I wonder why it didn't happen, that they were planned properly in the first place.
I'll get you a response to that outside the meeting, because that's a more specific issue than the ones in the agenda. But it is an example of the things that lead to frustration with our residents, really. But I will get you a proper answer to that.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, just linking in with the sort of slippage and reprofiling. In the previous report, we've talked about condition of assets. It's one of the things we're going to talk about. And this report shows a significant reprofiling for corporate buildings and the civic centre. Is there an issue with capacity and resources with regards not just our asset capital projects, but the programme overall? Or we just been a bit too ambitious around the corporate buildings in the civic centre as well?
I don't think there's an issue around resources. I do think that possibly you've got a point about the ambition at which we want to move. As I said earlier, I'm always impatient to get things done. That's why I stand for election, to get things done. And a long time ago, I was a small business owner who could make those instant decisions as long as the bank manager agreed with me. But I could make a decision within, a couple of weeks that I want to do something. I could go and visit the bank manager the week after. And if he approved, a week after that, I could have the money in the bank to get on and do what I wanted. Local government doesn't work like that because it's public money. It is public money, and we need, we need the permission of councillors and council who've been elected to their positions to keep an eye on and look after public money. And I'm not saying that, I fully support that. I think that's absolutely right. That's why we're all elected. But that does build in certain frustrations for those of us who want to get on and do things.
I'll take you to page 51, paragraph 17, the decarbonisation works, and the Salix grant in particular around the Civic Centre was mentioned in the exempt report on swimming pool support fund and the South Ribble leisure improvements at full council last Wednesday. Now, given the sensitivities around this, it would be helpful to have a more detailed report at our next meeting on circumstances around this grant and if there are any lessons to be learned. Could this be provided, please, for our next meeting?
I'm more than happy for that to be done. And I think it's probably important that, like I said, if lessons are to be learned, that we learn those lessons. It's an issue that has got quite a history now. And I'm sure that the Chief Exec will be delighted to share some of the steps that we've gone through on that. But I can't see any reason why that can't be with commercial sensitivities. Obviously, we always have to make that proviso. But if there's lessons to be learned, it's really important that we learn them.
Thank you. And obviously, we can put things in place in relation to those sensitivities to ensure that we can scrutinise that to its maximum. Councillor Walton.
Thank you. My question is on page 51, paragraph 18, concerning sports and leisure, and a further £392,000 in relation to sports pitch, hub and other leisure facilities. So what further works are due to be undertaken at the Bamber Bridge Sport Pitch Hub to improve the facilities, and at what costs?
I'm going to have to defer to Councillor Hunter on that one, because I don't know the specifics, and I really wouldn't like to give you half an answer. So we'll get a response to that.
Councillor Howarth.
Yes, page 51, paragraph 23. What stage is the Penwith Master Plan currently at, and does the reprofiling of budget mean the timescales have moved to? I mean, we're now on our third cabinet member since this was first mooted. We got to REBA stage 2 with the first set of consultants. I think we've been waiting now for a new consultant to be appointed for getting on the best part of a year. I think that's now happening because we're having to spend external funding, so it's an urgent item. But we were promised lots of dates of spades in the ground, and I'm not exactly sure how close we are to it.
And I think that's a perfect example of what we talked about in the capital programme. But I'm 99% certain we're out to procurement on this, the next stage. So I'm probably going to have to but I'm only 99% sure. So I'll get you a written response to that. But I accept exactly what you're saying, and I think it's a good example of the realistic profiling of the capital programme. The commitments, the budget will be found to do this. But I accept it's not where we would have hoped it would have been when we were probably talking 2 years ago.
Councillor Pillinger. Sorry, Councillor Walton, sorry, my apologies.
Thank you. And my question is on page 52, paragraph 31, about borrowing and investment. So how confident are we as a council that we will be able to continue in future years as debt-free?
I don't think we've ever said we'll be debt-free forever. We're debt-free as long as we can. But I think it's a bit like saying to a household, can you guarantee you'll be debt-free forever? Or a young married family, will you be debt-free forever? But they might want to take a mortgage on and buy a house. You would never say to them, don't take a mortgage on to buy a house. Because if that house is an important part of that family unit's future and they can show that they can afford it, then, it wouldn't, none of us would prevent people from taking on that mortgage. So we remain debt-free. We are debt-free at the moment. I don't think we've ever said we'll be debt-free forever, especially if we want to be ambitious. If we want to be ambitious and there are things that we want to invest in, then I don't think there's anything wrong in borrowing to make that investment. It's about making sure that investment is the right thing for our borough and that there is a plan to service any debt that you incur in starting that off. But as I say, I don't think we've ever said we'll be debt-free forever. We've celebrated and enjoyed all the time we've been debt-free. But sometimes you can be debt-free because you're just not ambitious enough and you're not prepared to do anything. It's easy to be debt-free, actually. It's easy to be debt-free. Just don't do anything. But I don't think we're that kind of administration.
It's good to hear that we're not going to do anything as well, Councillor Tomlinson. Councillor Pillinger.
Yeah, it's always good to see rates collections going up as a percentage of what we ought to be getting. And I note that the council tax rate is a little bit down, but the business rate collection's up from 94.5% to over 97%. How does that compare to pre-pandemic levels? Do we know?
I'll get you. We will have the information. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure we can get you that. It's just too specific. But we'll get you that. But I think it is pleasing, and I think we talked before about how fortunate we are in our geographical situation in the country, that this South, plus the fact that historically under whatever administration, South Ribble has been seen as a council that wants to encourage business, wants to work with business, wants to work with the county council because they are significant landowners in the borough to encourage business. And it's very gratifying to see these figures. But if you want to get some historical figures, I'm sure we can provide the committee with them.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item 8, because we'll take questions from members, not the committee, for both items. So first question from me in relation to the revenue budget. Overall, how confident are we on the sustainability of budget against the backdrop of the current economic picture?
So if you're asking me about future budgets are always a projection. That's what they are. You set your budget, but it's a budget is always, you know, a lot of people putting ideas together and a lot of people doing a lot of projections. But, you know, events, dear boy, as someone once said, that's what throws you off. And if you look at this report that reflects on what's happened over the last 12 months, there are an awful lot of movements on individual budgets, which, as I said in my preamble, thankfully, have balanced themselves out and, in fact, have seen us have an underspend. I'm confident in this council's budgeting going forward because over the whole 14 years of austerity, and I would say this actually about most of local government, while there have been challenges in individual councils across the country of all colours and no overall control and whatever, the vast majority of councils have delivered incredible efficiencies and still managed to give a good service to most of their residents. If you compare what local government's done to what Whitehall has managed over the last 14 years, there is no comparison. Whitehall have constantly struggled to manage the budgets. You can argue about how effective they've been in governing the country from a very centralised base, but local government has consistently achieved the savings and efficiencies that have been set to it and still managed to deliver at what I would argue in most cases is a really good service to local residents. I've been here long enough to remember Gershon efficiencies that go back to the noughties. And there's been a constant drive on local government, constant pressure to do more for less. And we constantly achieve it. And that's through things like shared services, working more collaboratively with others. There's a whole range of ways that you can, if you're flexible enough, you can look at doing things differently. Will there be challenges ahead? Yes. Is the sea before us calm? No. But we have a long track record that results us in having more money in the general reserve than we've ever had before, despite everything that's gone ahead. And we still have a healthy reserve to see us through the challenges that might come. So you asked me how confident I am. I'm very confident.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, moving on to the revenue budget. Looking at page 70, when we talk about different departments and overspends and underspends, in paragraph 18, the fifth bullet point relates to a car park underspend. Is this more indicative of our sort of expected revenue forecast being incorrect as part of the sort of car parking review as and when it was set quite a while since? Or does data from car park tickets issued suggest that we're seeing a decline in visits to our town centres, which is an altogether slightly different problem?
When I bring this report to scrutiny, I always say that this is about our financial management. And some of the specific questions may be better placed to the individual cabinet members. But on that one, I think it's a mixture of both. Undoubtedly. Some of our car parks are being used less than they were. And I think in the questions to the leader, somebody talked about vacancies in our town centres, which historically have been really good. But there are some high-profile vacancies and some recent ones. So I think we have got that. The introduction of the new car parking system was not without its challenges. So I think we'd have to do some digging to decide which of those two that you suggested is it, and what proportion is it. I would say from outside looking in, I think it's a bit of both, but quite what percentage it is, I couldn't say. I'd just say that, you know, we have been listening to our residents on car parking, so we know that there've been challenges. I know that some of the members of our hubs have been asked for their views on that, and you know, there will be a cabinet decision on our long stay car parks being published imminently.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Could I take us to page 71, paragraph 19? It's the bullet point right at the bottom of that page, which shows that there's been an overspend of 51,000 on our contribution to the leisure company. Please, could you talk us through the reasons for this?
Have a go. So in relation to the leisure company, you'll recall we brought a paper back in September. So the council does make a planned contribution to the leisure company for the services provided. But there was a number of reasons that this year, as there was in the previous year, so a pay award being awarded in excess of what had been budgeted for, as it had been in the council as well. The increased costs of utilities that had absolutely rocketed, and also in relation to income targets not being met. And it was the recovery from the pandemic, the cost of living crisis, etc. And so there was an overspend in terms of what was paid to the in support to the leisure company compared to what had been budgeted. That's what that relates to. So it's a combination. For next financial year, we have made a provision in the budget again in case we do need to provide additional support to the leisure company. That's been an undertaking that the council has given as its wholly owned subsidiary, but it's not something that is part of the core budget for the leisure company, because we need to see how the year pans out. We are forecasting that utility costs will come down. We've entered into new contract for the provision of utilities, so we are expecting those to be reduced. And equally, there have been plans put in, measures put in place to address the income levels as well. So we do expect that to be on an improved basis, and we are seeing that start to improve. A mixture of increases in fees, but also in the provision of services as well. So we hope that it's not going to diminish. It's not going to completely be eradicated, but we do expect the level of contribution from the council to start to reduce, and over time we expect that to be cost neutral.
Yeah, thank you for that response. So looking forward then, what does the sustainability of the council's funding look like in terms of supporting the leisure company in the future?
So the I think it was £800,000 additional funding that had to be given to the leisure company, and this year over and above what was planned. So as I said, we are expecting that level to reduce significantly as utility costs have come down. The cost of the pay award has been baked into the budget for the leisure company, and with the plans afoot, with the work that's been done on the refurbishment of the leisure centres, with a review of the facilities and memberships that are in place, we expect to see income increasing there. You may recall we changed the arrangement, the management arrangement between the council and the leisure company in order to remove the irrecoverable VAT that we were paying, and that amounted to about £100,000 per annum. So again, we've restructured that agreement. So nothing has changed. The delivery is exactly the same, but it just is more advantageously compliant with HMRC rules. So we benefit from that. So I couldn't tell you the exact figure, but we, as I say, we do expect the contribution to reduce, and the objective is for it to be cost neutral to the council, that the leisure company will be able to stand on its own 2 feet without any support from the council. But it will take us a bit of time to get there. Obviously, utilities being a significant cost that were not expected some years ago when the leisure company was established.
Thank you. Just on that as well, in relation to the utilities you mentioned and the challenges that we've had with those, and many others have in recent years, given the decarbonisation works has been completed at our centres, is there going to, obviously the benefit of reduced emissions will be there, but will there be a cost benefit in relation to the cost of those utilities coming down because of that work being completed?
As of today, there won't, because of the differentials between gas and electricity, because we've gone from gas to electricity. Hopefully, as things settle down, there will be. But this was a decarbonisation project. This wasn't necessarily a cost-saving project. But we've taken all that, we will have taken all of that carbon out of the emissions that this council is responsible for, and I think that is to be applauded. But I think I want to be clear that the driver behind that was not about cost savings.
Okay, Councillor Pillinger.
Homelessness is one of those things that's very difficult for us to plan in advance for, because so many of the reasons for it happening are beyond both our control and the control of the people being made homeless. If it was controllable by them, they wouldn't be homeless. We are overspending at the moment, or have been, to the tune of nearly £500,000, and you will know obviously that this committee has a scrutiny group looking at the whole subject at the moment. Are we considering options to provide temporary accommodation ourselves rather than outsource it? Are there other things we can do? I can remember a conversation with the previous leader about the possibility of the council buying properties that people would default on so that they could stay in their own homes and not therefore be homeless. Are we able to be proactive on this?
Well, first of all, you're right, it's a challenge, and especially for district councils like us, who by definition are smaller than the unitaries or the counties, yet have responsibility for housing. So an overspend of this magnitude is significant, and I know that some councils it's been far, far worse. So there's a real issue here. I'm pleased that the scrutiny committee's got a homeless task group set up to have a look at it, because it seems to me that this is one of those issues that merits very much from a group going away and doing some considered work. Now, as to the options, I think that's something that I look forward to the scrutiny task group coming up with. All of the things that you've said are feasible theoretically. Now, whether in practice they are feasible or not is something that needs to be done. But I look forward to the results of the scrutiny task group. I do want to commend actually our homelessness staff who work, as that's Jennifer and her team and everybody connected with this, because the figures, whilst they are stark, are nowhere near as stark as the figures that we were projecting at the beginning of the year, and that is in a significant amount due to the work that they've done with housing associations and other people like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Walton.
Thank you. My question is on page 72, paragraph 20, and concerns the overspend and underspends in the different departments. The first bullet point says agency staffing is mentioned here and elsewhere in the report. So is the use of agency staffing a fact of life in local government now? And is it a trend that is expected to continue? And if so, how can we reduce the amount of agency spend for our staff to make sure our services continue to the high standard we are accustomed to?
I think in some respects, agency staff is a fact of life now. I think as councils have got smaller and smaller, as they've had less and less money to spend, then it's difficult to fill some posts. Recruitment and retention is really difficult for all local government. The effective wage freeze for 14 years means that now jobs in the private sector are far more attractive in comparison to local government, certainly than they were 20 years ago. So we've got a range of challenges around that. Also, there are just some jobs that are better filled by agency staff. So our waste collection team will always have some agency staff because we can't put off collecting the bins for a few days because someone's off sick, or so there will always be agency staff that come and go in jobs like that. I think in practice, you're far better minimising your agency staff, not just because of the costs, but because permanent staff who know us and know the issues and know the people and have built up those relationships are always more productive. What I would say is part of this report always looks at our vacancies, and whereas probably 3 or 4 years ago, that report would itemise 30, 40, 50 jobs that were vacant, you'll see now that we do have a lot less permanent vacancies. So we are working hard to fill the jobs that we need to do. But I think, to go back to the original question, is agency staff a fact of life in local government? I think it probably is for the foreseeable future. But you're right that we need to do what we can to minimise it.
Thank you. Can I take you to page 72, paragraph 20, and the third bullet point? The IT overspend here includes security costs. Given the challenges some major organisations are having in relation to IT security, how secure are our systems, and what work do we do to ensure the resilience of our IT systems? Something I'm sure you know a lot about.
I'm afraid I'm no Luddite, but I'm not qualified to answer that question. I'm sure Asim will be able to, though, and we'll get you a full response. I am encouraged that last week when the world and his wife was switching the computers off, we seemed to just plough on and get stuff done. Now there'll be a technical reason for that. I can't give you, I'm afraid. Oh, there we go.
And I only happen to know this because Grant Thornton asked some questions on it, and so I was kindly provided with answers from Claire Beatty-Arnu, Head of Digital Services. So in relation to the risk, particularly around cyber, actions that have been taken, a cyber security officer was appointed in July 23, and so the focus of their attention has been ensuring that our systems are resilient and secure in that regard. The cyber security policy is in draft. It's just waiting some final updates and then will be presented for approval. We have had some vulnerability management software that has been procured. There's a schedule of internal testing that is being undertaken at the moment, and that will be finalised as part of the cyber security policy. And there is a change advisory board that meets on a weekly basis. So any changes to systems that are requested are formally assessed before they take place, and the kind of any vulnerabilities are identified at that point. So it doesn't totally answer the question, but hopefully a little bit of reassurance on that one.
No, that's very helpful, and I think we'll look forward to receiving those reports when they come through. I think fundamentally residents will just want to know that the data is safe in our hands, which hopefully that report will answer. Can I bring Councillor Howarth in, please? Thank you.
Thought I've turned it on. It's good that there's additional income from maintaining Chorley Council's waste vehicles. Is there any scope for extending this service to other councils and organisations?
I think the initial easy answer is yes, but we need to be mindful about what capacity we've got. It is a good relationship that we've got. It's interesting that these are FCC maintained vehicles that they then subcontract the maintenance to a local council to deliver. But it is, it does bring in additional income. And you're right, it's something that we need to explore at every opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Walton.
Again, on page 72, paragraph 20, the last bullet point, it's about the 26,000 trade waste overspend. What is the reason for the overspend? And do we have to provide a trade waste service? So what steps are we taking to improve the situation?
So the short answer is we don't have to provide a trade waste service. And there are companies around like Biffa that I'm sure other trade waste services are available. I just can't think of any off the top of my head. But historically, we have always done this. And a lot of our customers now tend to be places like schools. But we do. So I'm aware, although it's not in my portfolio, that a review is being carried out. There are some historical services that we've provided that we are going to look at to see whether we want to continue doing it. My view is, if there's someone outside providing that service, we don't need to. We need to have a good reason as to why we're providing this service, and so that will inform part of the review. But a review is taking place.
So could we have the results of the review?
When it's completed, I'm sure we can, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Page 73, paragraph 21, roughly about halfway down the page. So there's been a £74,000 reduction in income across the budget for building control. Could you explain what the reasons are for this and what are the implications on this moving forward?
Tonight, I'm going to be really honest with you, but we'll get you that response. We don't have anybody from that portfolio in the room either, so.
Thank you. Councillor Pillinger.
Sorry, page 74. Paragraph 22, which would be the third bullet point, which is about Worden Hall overspend due to contractor issues, delays in opening, etc. How far away are we from a income target that we have set for ourselves, breaking even? Have we contingency for future years? Is there any more surprises yet to come? Well, we wouldn't know, would we? But that's the need for a contingency. What's the trend in terms of bookings and so forth? Thank you.
So I'm pleased that the trend is now positive. We've had at least 2, maybe 3 weddings now, and the feedback has been really positive. And we've got weddings booked now. I don't know the number, but I know of one that's booked for 2 years' time, which I think will be what we ought to be looking at, because most people, when they're planning we always said when it opened, there are not many people who are planning a wedding in 6 weeks, certainly not at somewhere like Worden Hall. So most of our bookings will be in the future, but we do have bookings in place now. The commercial space upstairs is now rented out. So I don't want to get away from, again, how frustrating this has been. The unknown unknowns that you just don't foresee coming and then land in your lap. But your final question was about the trends. The trends are positive. They are positive. Has it taken longer than we would have liked? Yes. Have some unexpected things dropped in our laps that no one saw coming? Yes. But I think the long-term prognosis is a positive one.
Do we have any idea of a break-even point?
I don't at the moment, no. in terms of it, the idea was always that it would at least break even on its running costs. So that remains the ambition, and we'll look at every opportunity we can find to push that forward. I talked to the officer involved about sweating the asset. So we need to look at every little bit of income that we can get. And that will provide its challenges. And no doubt in the future we'll have community groups who want to rent Worden Hall and come back to us and say how much that's ridiculous. But there has to be a realistic price for renting a facility like this. And so that's the kind of thing we'll have to balance. But the medium term aim, not the long term, the medium term aim is that this site will become self-sufficient.
So would you be able to give us some, in writing, some projections on when it would be likely to be?
If that's what the committee wants, I'm sure we can work towards that.
I think that'll help us in terms of moving forward. I think we'd all probably like to see those provisions if we could, moving forward. Thank you. Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, if I can take to pages 85 and 86, Appendix 4, the number of staffing vacancies list appears quite low compared to the amount of budget underspend due to vacant posts. Is this because posts are being filled, or do posts have to be vacant for a certain period of time to be included? And could you talk us through the approach?
So first of all, I'm really pleased that the list is getting significantly shorter. The question about the underspends compared to this list is a really interesting one, actually, and not something I'd considered. So I'd like to go away and do some work on that, frankly, because it's a really interesting philosophical question. I'm not stalling. Genuinely, it's an interesting question, but it is pleasing that the list is shorter. But we'll have to get somebody to do some work on the question that you've raised.
Kind of to add to this, the vacancies that are listed there is a snapshot of the vacancies that are there as at the 31st of March, and that comes from our payroll system. Those are the vacancies that are on there that are vacant. The vacancies and the amount of vacant underspend generated as a consequence of vacancies has accumulated over the course of the 12 months. So over the course of the 12 months, there's been a lot of recruitment activity from at deputy chief exec level, directors, heads of service. There's been a lot of movement on that. So posts that were held vacant for some time, just due to the time it takes to recruit into them, have been filled. And that's why I think the vacancy list looks lower at the March year end, but we still can see that there's large overspends accumulated over the course of the year.
And I'm thankful, and that's exactly why Louise is here. So with those comments, I withdraw my offer to do some work on that issue.
I was going to say we were looking forward to your homework and marking it next time, Councillor Thompson. But thank you very much for that. That brings us to an end from questions from the committee. Are there questions from members not on the committee? No, we don't have any members of the public here either. Therefore, can we please formulate the recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes from the discussion tonight. The committee thanks the Cabinet Member and Director for attending and answering questions. The committee welcomes the acknowledgement that the reprofiling is significant and that the Cabinet Member is looking at how this could be improved in the future. The committee is grateful for the offer of further information being provided on sewage systems in Worden Park. The committee requests that a report be presented to the next meeting on the issues around the SAILX decarbonisation grant and any lessons that might be learned. The committee welcomes the commitment to provide further information on the Pemberton Master Plan. The committee is grateful for further information being provided on business rate trends. The committee commends the work of the housing team in supporting homelessness cases and reducing the budget with regards to temporary accommodation. The committee is grateful for the reassurance provided on ICT and cyber security, and also looks forward to further information being provided. The committee looks forward to further information being provided on the review of the trade waste scheme service and the reasons for the reduction in building control income. And finally, the committee asks that the next quarterly report includes projected income and progress being made on the future financial sustainability of Woden Hall. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. Are we all happy with those recommendations? Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for your attendance tonight. Much appreciated. We will then move to item 9, urgent decisions. The Scrutiny Committee is asked to review the urgent decision process and note the report. The report is obviously in relation to the HAF programme and ensuring that it was delivered in time for Easter. Any comments on that? Or can we move on from there? Okay, that's noted. Item 10, the Corporate Performance and Budget Scrutiny Committee, the draft annual report for 23-24. We're just asked to comment on and agree this report for submission to the next full council meeting. Any comments on that? Can we all agree? Councillor Williams, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say on this is it's really comprehensive, and a lot of the subjects that we've actually covered here. It's great to see that an actual review of what we've actually done over the year. So yeah, I think it's a really good comprehensive report.
Yes, absolutely, I would agree. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Item 11, then we've got a few A, B's and C's. The first one is the scrutiny review of homelessness. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank Darren and Ben and all the officers involved in actually putting the event on. It was a significant amount of work, and you know the work that was put into resulted in a fantastic attendance across a number of our partner organisations. Everybody was sort of really open and about talking about the different issues and bringing their experiences to it. I think I'd also like to thank all the councillors that did attend as well. There's a number around the table who did attend as well, and I think they got an awful lot out of the day as much as what I did as well. We've spoken to the then portfolio holder about different issues and a lot of different stakeholders as part of this. A lot of the key issues came out on the day as well. We're all talking about the same thing, what we could do, but what was really encouraging was the positivity and the will of everybody to work together to solve some of the issues and improve people's lives drastically. I think it was brilliant. Obviously, we're getting to the last meeting now. We'd have whatever meetings we need to do to finalise the report. We've got the meeting next week, 31st of July, to formulate the recommendations. One of the recommendations could be that we repeat the homelessness summit on a more regular basis. I think that could be one of the recommendations. I look forward to getting those recommendations out there and developing that final report for presentation. So yeah, fingers crossed we can get a better outcome for the people that require our services.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, and thank you for your work in leading that. 11B is the scrutiny review of the cultural strategy. Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We did get as far back in March, I think it was, of sending a questionnaire around to all the members of council, really sounding them out as to what they thought culture actually is. And we did get some interesting responses to that and some wide and varied answers. And then, of course, we had the general election, and matters tended to get kicked into the long grass due to unavailability of a lot of members. So now we've got those responses, it's time to kick on again with a meeting in early September and to drive it forward. Interestingly, Councillor Alty, who's now just gone, has actually appointed a new cabinet member with a responsibility for culture. So perhaps we could meet with that person and gauge what their view is as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 11C is the meetings and training attended by committee members. I know that quite a few committee members attended the training delivered by John Lamb from the North West Employees Organisations. Anyone any comments on that training? Councillor Williams?
As I said, as a fairly new, as a new councillor, new to scrutiny, so I found it really valuable. And if we can do more of these type of events to enhance our knowledge, then I would be all for attending more of these type of things.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important we continue to have the mindset of we can always learn something new, which so that training was beneficial, definitely. Councillor Walton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to support Councillor Williams. I attended it, and I've attended it, this sort of training, many times over the years as a scrutiny member, and every time you learn something new and how to improve your to be a scrutineer, and how we as members can improve our skills. It was a good evening, and everyone who attended enjoyed the session.
Thank you very much. Item 11D is the Cabinet Forward Plan. Members are asked to review the Cabinet Forward Plan, identify any items they may be interested in looking at moving forward. As always, please let us know if there is anything outside of this meeting that you want to look at in further detail. And item 11E is the Corporate Performance and Budget Scrutiny Committee Forward Plan, which is documented in the report, where we will look forward to having lead members and cabinet members come into this committee. I know Councillor Watkinson, that will be his first scrutiny committee, which we look forward to welcoming him, and Councillor Tomlinson as usual, as well as Councillor Olty. That brings us to an end to our meeting. Thank you very much for attending. For those online, thank you very much for watching. That's it. Thank you.